You might want to introduce yourself.
Yeah. Before any of this breaks, just jump in at any time if the sound gets bad, if you can't hear me, if you can't understand or anything.
Okay, I will.
Can you tell me how many people are in the room?
Probably about 50.
Okay. Ages?
Ages?
70 and up.
Anybody under 60?
All geniuses. All geniuses.
From the 50s up to the 95.
Okay, so I'm almost the youngest one in the room then.
Right.
Yes.
It's important to know because what you know about technology depends an awful lot on your age, as you certainly all found out over the years. Anyway, let me tell you who I am. My name is Kirk McElhearn. I'm a freelance writer. I write for Macworld, notably where I'm known as the iTunes guy. I do a column twice a month called Ask the iTunes Guy, where I answer common and obscure questions about iTunes. I got into the iTunes part of writing because I'm a big music fan. You're looking at my iTunes library on my laptop, which is a test library. It's very small. It's only, about 40 gigabytes, and there's only 400 albums. My main library has about 70,000 tracks. It's about 1 terabyte. I've been a music fan since I was a teenager. I listened to rock and folk and jazz and classical. About half of my iTunes library is classical music. About a quarter of it is the Grateful Dead. Anyone raise their hands if they're fans of the Grateful Dead?
Yeah, we have about 5 hands.
Great, okay. So I'm talking to you today from York, England. I grew up in New York, and I'm living in Old York, although I'm planning to move from here in about 2 weeks. I've lived in Europe for almost 30 years, and so I write for Macworld. I've written a Take Control book about iTunes called Take Control of iTunes 11, the FAQ. I've written several other Take Control books. The current ones in print are about Scrivener, which is a word processor for creative writers, and about LaunchBar, which is a utility. Altogether, I've probably written about 20 computer books, translated about a dozen books from French to English, written about 500 classical CD reviews, about 100 articles from Macworld, and a few hundred other articles for different publications. I actually have an article about Shakespeare coming out today in the Loop magazine. If you don't know it, it's run by Jim Dalrymple, who runs a website called The Loop, and it's a magazine you can get on iPad and iPhone. So that's about it for me. What I want to do is spend a few minutes to just walk you through some things in iTunes that you may not know, and then open the floor for questions. I've done this before, and I've found that there are hundreds of questions that probably everyone who uses iTunes is frustrated by one part of iTunes, and you're just waiting on the edge of your seat to raise your hand and ask the question, correct?
Right.
Okay. What I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to fix something, and then I'm going to walk through different ways you can view your content. So I'm going to go, if you open iTunes 11 today and you haven't changed anything, you'll see something like this. You'll see iPhones or artists or composers, genres, playlists. But if you've been using iTunes for more than a year, you'll remember that there was a sidebar on the left side that made it a lot easier to manage things in iTunes. You could more easily put music into playlists. You could see your iPhone and your iPod and your iPad when they're connected. And the first thing I want you to know is that you can bring that back, and it's very easy. If you click on the View menu and choose Show Sidebar, you get this sidebar here. So you can see I'm in my music library. I can click on movies, TV shows, podcasts, etc. And it's just like it was before in iTunes 10. So if you're frustrated with this new view, which again looks like this, so you've got to go over here to get back to your library, and then here, choose which kind of content you see. With the sidebar visible, it's all in this one line. I don't have an iPod or an iPhone connected, but it would show up here as well. So when you're looking at iTunes, you want to find the music or the TV shows or whatever you're going to listen to or watch from iTunes. And there are several ways you can view your content. How you view the content depends on the type of music. It depends on how you think about music. Personally, I like doing by genre. Because if I choose a genre, if I know what I want to listen to, I'll want to listen to, I don't know, some blues, some rock, some classical music. And what I've done is I don't know how, can you read what's on the text on the screen there?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so if you look at my genre list, you'll notice I have a genre called Dead. That's my Dead. You can add your own custom genres, which is a very simple thing to do. I'm going to show you how. You select a number of files, you press Command-I, which would be the same as, let's see, file, library, get info. So Command-I and get info, which is multiple item information. If you just type a new genre in the genre tag, iTunes will accept it. Now, you can scroll through the list, and iTunes has a number of preset genres, but they don't have a Dead genre. So I created one for all my Grateful Dead music, and that way, when I want to listen to the Grateful Dead, I just click on that genre, and I can scroll through all my albums. You'll notice I have the same for Dylan. I have all of Bob Dylan's music. In classical music, I have chamber music, I have keyboard, I have leader, I have orchestral. I'm downloading something here, and I don't want to do that. It's downloading podcasts. Sorry. So if you think of music in terms of which genre do I want to listen to, then accessing your music through the genres list is a good way to do it. Unfortunately, when you go to the genres list, the albums are in alphabetical order for name album.
You're starting to be garbled.
When he moves his cursor, it garbles.
When you move your cursor, it garbles.
Okay, I'll try not to move the cursor and speak at the same time. Okay, so when you're in the genres list, the albums are listed by artist and by name. So you can scroll down and find. Another way is to look by artist. So if you would rather that you know you want to listen to, let's say, Bruce Springsteen, then you just click on Bruce Springsteen and in the artist list. Since I have a lot of classical music, I also list by composer. And if I know that I want to listen to music by a certain composer, this is probably the quickest way to access. Now, one thing I recommend if you're going to do this is to make sure that you always use the same name for a composer. So you can see in this example, it's Beethoven, Ludwig van. If you have some albums where it's Beethoven, Ludwig, and others where it's Ludwig van Beethoven, they'll come up two different places in the list, and you won't find them together. There's a Bob Dylan there. I don't really like composers for pop music, so I'm going to select that, delete it, and I click OK, and there's no more Bob Dylan. You can also pull your music by album. Now what this does is it lists by artist and then by album. So you can see it starts with Bach. This first album is an exception because it's a compilation with different composers. So you can see it starts with Bach. It scrolls down a little bit further. There's Brian Eno and Brad.
You're garbled.
George, it's not.
I'll stop moving. And you get down to the Grateful Dead. The problem with looking by albums, if you have a very large library, I have 407 albums, so it takes quite a while to find what you want in there. Now, in any of these views, you can use a search field. So I'm going to search for, let's see, one of my favorite Grateful Dead songs, Ripple. I'm in albums view, so as I search, iTunes eliminates everything that doesn't match the search. And you'll see, for instance, it's showing the song Ripple on this album and on this album. and on this album. Genesis actually did a song called Ripples with an S, so that shows up here. Can anyone guess which song by Bob Dylan and the band is going to show up?
Cripple Creek.
Exactly. Up on Cripple Creek. So it's not a word search like Google, it's a character search. But it's a pretty good way to find what you're looking for. If you're looking for a certain artist or composer, you can choose here. I'm going to choose Search Entire Library, which I hadn't chosen before. And now I'm going to type Ripple. And you can see that I get a list instead of iTunes narrowing down what's in the display. In fact, let me go back. Here, I've typed in help. So there are there's an album and some songs. If you type in an artist's name, you'll find that artist's name, and you'll see a long list of music by the artist if you have a lot of music, and you'll see a shorter list if you don't. My preferred way of viewing my music is the songs list. The song list is pretty much the way iTunes was a couple of versions ago, back in iTunes 9 or 8, before you really had these different, like the artists and the genres list. I'm going to just scroll a bit. You can see that I have set up each album showing the album art, and at the top, this is called the column browser. Now, you may not see this in iTunes. You'll only see this when you're in a view that shows a list. So this could be the song list, or it could be if you're looking at your movies in a list, or your TV shows in a list. If you choose View Column Browser, you can hide it. You can display it again. You can choose, for instance, which columns you want to display. So I have composers displayed. If I turn it off, then it just shows genres, artists, and albums. Now, what's interesting for me about Column Browser is, let's say I want to listen to some chamber music. If I click on chamber music, it shows me only those composers, artists, and albums that are in chamber music. So if I click now on Beethoven, it shows me only what I have by Beethoven. So it's a way of drilling down and narrowing down what you're going to see in iTunes. Any questions about any of this, about the different ways of viewing content in iTunes, before I go on?
Any questions?
Is it the same for podcasts?
Yeah.
Is it the same for podcasts?
Is it the same for podcasts?
Yeah, well, no, podcast, there's two things in podcast. If you go to the list in podcasts, that's the same as the songs view. You can't see album art. You do see things in a list mode. Unfortunately, what they did with podcasts now is they make this sort of combined view, which frankly is very confusing. But my podcast shows what you subscribe to, and you see a list in the left. So it's sort of like the artist list or the genre list. And then you see this bigger list to the right, which is good because it gives a description of the podcast, but you can't see as much. It also shows what's on the computer or not. You see the cloud icon. You would click it to download it. In this case, these podcasts aren't on here, but they're on my other computer. And since this syncs from one computer to another, it's going to remember everything. Only got one movie and no TV shows here, but movies is the same. You can have a list view, you can have a genres view, and you can also show what's unwatched. In this case, again, I just have the one because I have a lot of disk space on this computer. Audiobooks is the same. You can have a list view, you can author, or you can view by icon. I've only got one app here. Again, this isn't like my normal computer. You have the similar options. You get the most options for viewing in music because you have albums and composers and artists. All the other libraries give you similar options, but they're not exactly the same. So you can try out any of the same things. The column browser works in any list view. but it'll just display some different content if you're looking at different things. Another thing I'm just going to go through very quickly is smart playlists. How many people, can we get a show of hands, how many people use smart playlists?
Probably about a dozen.
Okay. Smart playlists are basically, a smart playlist is a set of rules and a set of conditions. So let me give you an example. I have a Bob Dylan smart playlist, and I'm going to edit the smart playlist. It essentially chooses here, I'm matching two rules. The artist is Bob Dylan, and the plays, the number of times I've listened to it, is 0. I'm limiting it to 25 items selected by random, and live updating means that every time something has been played, the play count moves from 0 to 1, and it won't appear in the playlist anymore. Smart playlists are great if you have a favorite genre, artist, type of music that you want to listen to, and you want to listen to it in shuffle mode at random. So what I do, again, this is my big library on the other computer. I have a smart playlist for Bob Dylan, songs I haven't listened to in the last 3 months, for instance. And I'll put this on sometimes when I want to listen to some Dylan, but I don't know which album or which song. Smart playlists can get complicated. You have a whole lot of conditions here. As you can see, it's a very long list. I generally use it to choose artists or genres, and things that I haven't played in a while, or let's see what I have here. This one is, okay, this is just one artist. For instance, Brad Meldau, he's a jazz pianist. On my other computer, I have 2 smart playlists, one for his studio albums and one for his live albums. So sometimes I want to listen to the improvisations on the live albums, and sometimes I want to listen to the studio songs, which are shorter. So you can put all of that in smart playlists. The iTunes Store. I'm just going to give a quick walk. How many people actually use the iTunes Store?
About half the group.
Okay. The iTunes Store is pretty easy to use. You search for things. You look, so for instance, here's classic. So you click on an album, you can buy it, you can download it and sync it. One of the biggest problems with the iTunes Store is if you're looking for something a little bit obscure, is getting search correct in the iTunes Store. When you search something in iTunes, in the iTunes Store, it's a very broad search. It's not very specific. I'm going to give you a tip, and maybe someone can write this down later. If you search in Safari, I'm going to search for one of my books in the iTunes Store. How about that? So I'm going to type in my name, and I don't know if you know how to restrict a Google search to a specific site. You type SITE:, then you type the website. So the iTunes Store is just basically a website. You can't really see it because it's in the iTunes app. So if I want to look for my name in the iTunes Store, I type site:/iTunes.apple.com. And hey, there's my books on iBooks. There's my Take Control of iTunes, Take Control of LaunchBar. You'll find if you're looking for something obscure that searching like this for the iTunes Store is more efficient than searching in the iTunes Store itself. If you want a really specific version of a song by someone that's been covered 150 times, the iTunes Store is going to give you a whole lot of results, but it'll max out at a certain number of results, and you won't see them all. You can add as many keywords as you want. So I put Kirk McElhearn, I can put iTunes and add that. Although that probably goes to, let's try LaunchBar. There, so now I've only found just 2 listings. So if you're looking for something, or type in as many keywords as you want, then site:/itunes.apple.com. One way I use that is if I'm looking for a movie with a certain actor. So I don't know, I'm going to choose Bruce Willis, and I'll see all his movies. So here's one with a list of Bruce Willis movies in different. Well, actually, I'm getting a whole lot of things in different languages, so that lets me append this to show you another trick. /US/, and then you only get stuff on the US iTunes store. Unfortunately, there are songs. There's a song named Bruce Willis, Black Bruce Willis by etc. But I think you get the idea. If you search in Google, you can find stuff more easily sometimes in the iTunes store.
The only time you're getting garbled now is when you move up and down.
Only up and down, not horizontally.
When the screen scrolls.
No, when you're scrolling.
When the screen
Okay,
scrolls.
I'll just try and remember not to talk when scrolling.
You got a lot of things to remember.
Okay. Well, listen, I think it's time to open this up to questions now. And as I said, in my experience, everyone has a pet thing that irks them about iTunes. So here's your chance to ask if there's a way to get around it.
Okay.
I mostly do podcasts, and ever since I put some podcasts on my iPad and have it in my computer, it's not, iTunes isn't syncing, syncing automatically. I have to do all kinds of rigmarole to get it to sync, and then it asks the questions. You have two devices or something like that. So is there any way of just having it sync automatically when there's two?
Yeah, what I suggest is to not use iTunes.
How do I get rid of it?
What they did to podcasts is just terrible. Not only is it confusing, I still haven't figured it out yet. As you say, they don't sync reliably. There's an excellent app called Instacast, INSTACAST. I'm not sure how much it costs. It might be $10. There is a Mac version and there's an iOS version. It's easy to use and easy to understand. It syncs reliably. I've been using it occasionally, and I find it's a lot more reliable than iTunes. I wish I had a workaround for podcasts in iTunes, but it's just so incredibly confusing. You don't know what's downloaded and what's not. You see a list of things you've already listened to and that you want to delete. Of all the iTunes questions that people are going to ask today, that's the only one we're going to say don't use iTunes.
How do I get rid of the one that I put in the iPad? How
do you get rid of what?
How do I get rid of the podcast that I downloaded in the iPad?
If you hold on, I'm getting my iPhone out here. So if you open the If you open the podcasts app on, what did you say, your iPad? Mm-hmm. Let's see, all on paid. And you just swipe a particular podcast to the left, you'll get a delete. You'll get a delete button. Just the way you delete anything else on an iPhone or iPad.
Thank you.
You can delete an entire podcast, so all the episodes, or you can delete an individual episode.
Thank you very much.
All right, I have a question from one of our members who's not here.
Okay.
He's saying, I am importing music from CDs. On the symphonies, I want to band the tracks together so that they will play continuously. I used to do that, but can't remember how. So when I went to help and those directions were not in sync with my iTunes. Anyway, how does he do that?
I'm just looking to see if I have. Give me 1 second. I need to find a CD drive to connect to my Mac. All right. I'm afraid I can't show you because I don't have a drive. But what I'm going to do is, on my other Mac, I'm going to tell you where you want to look. So before you would go in the, I think it was the advanced menu, and you would choose Join CD Tracks. As you can see, there's no more advanced menu. Hold on, I'm just putting a CD in on my other computer. So what happens is when you insert the CD is going to show up in the sidebar. I showed you earlier how to display this sidebar. This is another place where it's very useful to have the sidebar. So you click on the CD, and at the very far right of the window, you have an options button. So if you can see on the screen here, the podcast one that says old episodes, when you click on a CD, there's a button right near there that says options. What you have to do is you have to select the tracks you want to join. So if you want to join the whole CD, you select all the tracks. So you click one, you press Command A, for instance. And when you click on that options button, you'll see that there's a menu item that says Join CD Tracks, and you select that. As I said, this used to be in an advanced menu, and the problem is when they moved it, a lot of people had been looking for it in a menu and couldn't find it anymore.
Okay.
Thank you.
So remember, click on the CD, select the tracks, click on the options button at the top right, and then join CD Tracks.
Okay. Go ahead.
I have a question about movies. And that
About
is-
movies?
Yes.
Okay.
When I go to movies, you have home movies and you have movies. That if you click on that. And my question is why do I have home movies? Some of my home movies are in movies, and some of them are in home movies, and some are in
Right.
both. What have I
Right.
done?
This is new in iTunes 11. They added this home movies section. Whenever you add a movie manually to iTunes, it gets automatically set as a home movie. If you had some in iTunes before you upgraded to iTunes 11, then they didn't get added as home movies. So what you need to do is you need to select a movie and then press Command I, what I just did here. Then you click on the Options tab, and you have a menu called Media Kind. If you click on that menu, you'll see that you have Movie and Home Movie. So if you want to change a movie to a home movie, you select Home Movie, then click OK. If you want to change a home movie to a movie, you choose Movie and then click OK.
Okay.
Yeah, I had that same problem, and it had some commercial movies, CDs, or DVDs that I had put into iTunes myself, and it classified them all of a sudden as a home movie, and it won't let me change it that way. It blocks out the movie thing. It grays it out.
Are you trying to select a single movie, or are you selecting several at the same time?
No, I'm selecting one at a time, and I'm going in exactly like you showed, and when I try and reclassify it, many of them it let me reclassify, but some of them it just would not let me. It was grayed out.
And these are movies that you had in your iTunes library before iTunes 11.
Yes.
Okay, what I would suggest is that you take those movies out of the library. So if I were to click and drag this, you see there's a little number,
Yes.
number 1. I could drag this to a folder or to the desktop or whatever. So the ones that you can't change, drag them into a folder, into a window. Make sure you have enough disk space, because what this is going to do is it's going to copy them, it's not going to move them. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
So once you've taken them out of the iTunes library, select them and just choose a movie and click delete. Okay, all the ones you want to replace. Then add the ones you've taken out back into iTunes again. So what happened is, for some of these movies tags, during the iTunes 11 upgrade, they got messed up. And I've heard this many times about people who couldn't make this change. I think it generally always works. You take them out, delete them, and then re-add them, and then it should sort it out. You'll have to change it again manually, because they'll come in as home movies, but that should sort the problem out.
Did you have another question? Well, let me get some of these other ones.
Yeah.
Mike?
Go to music in your sidebar. Now you notice all the way over on the right under the Apple logo in the categories you have internet. I don't have that on mine. How did you get internet on yours?
This is what used to be called radio. These are streaming radio stations. The one that says radio now is the new iTunes radio. If you want to display that, iTunes Preferences, under the general icon, you'll see Internet Radio. You need to check it there to get it displayed.
Oh, got it, yeah, I see it.
This is a good tip. If there's anything that you don't use, if you don't use podcasts and audiobooks, you can uncheck them in this and you'll just have less clutter in your iTunes library.
Yeah.
But if you do use certain, make sure that they are checked so they show up.
Did you have a question over there? Right there.
I had a question about how you search for an instrumental version of a song. It's a popular song title, but you don't want to have any singers on it. You just want the musical, a pure, totally instrumental version. How do you search for that?
Let's see if this works. Hello, Google. Google's not answering.
You stumped Google.
Hey, Google, you're not working. What's happening? Okay, White Christmas instrumental. So try this kind of a search. The song name, maybe the artist, and the word instrumental. Now let's see if it works in the iTunes store. Yeah, it seems to work here as well. So just the word instrumental. Now, this of course assumes that the word instrumental is in the name of the song, which isn't going to always be the case.
Well, we've got Elvis Presley there in your results.
Yeah, is that the one you're looking for?
No.
Oh, wait, hold on. Well, there's no singing.
Okay.
Maybe he's...
That might be a karaoke version.
Maybe they're just thinking of Elvis Presley while they're playing it.
Scott.
A question about iTunes Match.
Yeah.
Looking at music and songs, I have various symbols for the cloud in 6 different categories. When I look at it, they are purchased, uploaded, removed, ineligible, duplicate, and error. Can you explain some of that, please?
Sure. So purchased is obviously songs you bought from the iTunes store. They don't need to be re-uploaded because iTunes already knows that you have them. Uploaded are things that weren't matched, and I'll get to that in an aside in a second. So there's songs that weren't matched that were uploaded to Apple servers. Duplicate means that you've already got the song someplace else. Kind of strange. You may have, for instance, I don't know, let's see. You may have Come Together on Abbey Road by the Beatles, and you may also have it on a Beatles best of. iTunes Match is very strange. It'll treat one of them, the second one it gets to, as a duplicate. So it may match Come Together on Abbey Road, but it may not match Come Together on the Beatles best of. Purchased, uploaded, duplicate, error means that something happened, that there's something wrong with the file. I've seen a couple of problems where it's just files that were ripped and have noise that iTunes can't match them. Ineligible is anything that's less than 96 kilobits per second. Anything below that, iTunes will not match. You may remember that when iTunes Match came out, one of the selling points was that it kind of gives you an amnesty for stuff that you may have downloaded illegally. Now, our demographic age group doesn't download a lot of stuff illegally, so it probably doesn't concern you as much as, say, your kids or grandkids. But one of the things that the record labels wouldn't allow was for really bad quality songs to be matched. So there's a 96 kilobit limit. That's 5 of the 6. What was the last one?
Removed.
Sorry?
Removed.
Removed. What that means is the song shows up in the library, but it's not in the cloud anymore. Now, if you delete a song from your library, you'll see, if you're using iTunes Match and you delete a song from your library, you'll see a dialog asking if you also want to remove it from the cloud, so basically iTunes Match. And if you check that, it will get removed. If you see it removed, it's basic mistake that either you deleted something and somehow it stayed in the library, or it got deleted in the cloud and it's still in your library. I've never seen removed personally.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
What was the first one you was going to talk about, not downloaded?
Sorry, didn't hear that.
You said you skipped one category, you were going to go back to it?
Oh, yes, about uploaded, yes. About what matches and what doesn't. iTunes Match is very confusing. Why does it match certain songs and not others? I have albums where it matches 10 out of 12 songs. Now, if it's got the album on iTunes, it's got all 12 songs, and these are songs that I've ripped from CDs. I've got purchased albums where 10 songs out of 12 show as purchased and 2 other ones show as uploaded. When iTunes Match came out, and I just happened to be on Abbey Road here, which is the example, one of my Macworld colleagues found that 16 of the 17 songs matched, but she came in through the bathroom window, would not match. He asked people on Twitter if they were having the same problem, and he got tons of people who had the problem except for me. I was the only person for whom it matched. Now, it turns out that I have the latest remastered version of the Beatles CDs, and presumably other people, for some reason this one song wouldn't match because it wasn't the latest version on the other CDs. When something doesn't match, there's no solution. You can delete it and try and match it again, and it won't fix it. And this has been 2 years now that iTunes Match has been around. This problem started in the beginning, and it's not getting any better. And I don't know if Apple's ever going to fix it, or if they even can fix it.
Is there a relationship between Spotify and iTunes?
No. They're totally different systems, totally different companies. The music they have is maybe 90% the same, but the rest is different.
Mitch?
Have any of you used iTunes Radio?
Yes.
Do you like it?
Yes.
Yes.
So this is new. I need to sign in here. So this is new with iTunes 11. I really like it because you get a nice variety of music. You can see I've got a bunch of stations here that where it says my station set up. You get an interesting variety of music. You get to listen to things you might not have in your library, that you might not have heard in a long time. Let's see what comes up on the Grateful Dead radio right now.
You're garbling.
On November 30th, people across the country will come out to shop small.
So, see, I get an ad right away. But I find it quite interesting. You can make a station from a song from an artist if you're, let's see. You click this little, next to a song, you can choose new station from artist, new station from song. It's got some interesting options in it. Has anyone had any problems listening to it? Anything you don't understand?
I thought he was on iTunes Match. Why did you get an ad?
He's on the radio.
This is iTunes Radio.
It's on the radio.
Radio's supposed to be free if you're on Match.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's free if you're on Match, but I don't have Match turned on right on this computer.
Okay.
I turned it off before we started because I didn't want anything weird to happen. But yeah, you're not supposed to, you don't get ads when you've got iTunes Match.
Okay, so one of the things I know you could do on the radio is if you like the song, the Grateful Dead song you're playing, you can say, oh yeah, I want to buy that. Does it tell you, this is already in your library, so we're not going to let you buy it? Or does
Hold
it
on,
let you
get through
buy
the
it
ad.
again?
Yeah, let me just get through the ad, and we'll see if we can find one like that. Okay, well, this one isn't. 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 And oops, you can only skip 6 songs per hour on each station, which is a big limit, in my opinion. Let's try Hot Tuna. Let's see. I don't have this. I don't have this. I don't have this. I don't have this. It's not picking anything that I have. What's it be? And again, this is my limited library. I don't know if I have this in this library. Basically what's going to happen is if you, hold on, let me stop this. If you click this button, oh, whoa, whoa, whoa. I thought it would take you to the store. That's what it used to do. I would be careful. Because here it's asking if you want to buy it, but I would be careful to make sure that you don't already have something, that you're not confused. When you've got iTunes Match on, let me turn it on. It'll take a couple minutes to rev up. iTunes Match should be able to tell at this computer. Every time I turn off iTunes Match, when I turn it on, I have to add the computer again. So it takes a while. It should be able to tell you. Let me show you something interesting. I'm going to start playing something. Let's just go to. So I'm going to start playing this track by the Grateful Dead. Okay? If I go to the iTunes store, okay, it's not working. Okay, this is interesting. See, I discovered this a few weeks ago, that if you're playing something that's in, oh, no. Okay. This is a mastered for iTunes version, so it's not matched. Let's try Dylan, let's try, okay, Bob Dylan. See all. I've got to find exactly the same version. Okay, hold on, let me find another song. Let's see, Dylan. Blood on the Tracks, Tangled Up in Blue. No tracks. Okay, I'm having a problem accessing the iTunes store. So we go. Be patient.
You still got to answer your question.
Yeah. Well, this is related to the question.
Okay, no problem.
But I don't know. The iTunes store, because I turned on iTunes Match, so everything's messed up now. I'm going to turn that off. Okay, so this is interesting. What I found out a couple weeks ago is, you see this little arrow button when you hover over a song, that when I was, oh no, it's the same thing. When you're playing a song, and that same song is in the iTunes store, you'll see it playing. in the iTunes store. The problem is this is another mastered for iTunes, and I don't have the exact same version. I need to find something. Let's see. This might work. This has been mastered for iTunes. No, it's not working. Okay. What was maybe they've changed something, because what was happening is this little button would change to a play pause button. And for some reason it's not working now, and I discovered this, I don't know, a couple weeks ago, maybe a month ago. I wrote something on my blog showing the screenshot, so I'm not just imagining things. So at least this would let you know if what you were listening to was the same version of a song in the store, but apparently it's not working anymore. So all I can say about iTunes Radio is just be careful if you're going to buy something to make sure you don't actually have it.
I've got a couple questions on.
Oh, I'm sorry.
On music. It seems that when you buy music now at the iTunes store, you own the music and can do whatever you want with it in terms of moving the files around and so on. But that doesn't seem to be the case when you buy a movie. Is that right?
That's correct. The only thing where Apple removed DRM was music. They did this in the spring of 2009. And actually it's interesting because this was partly motivated by a possible prosecution in Europe, the fact that you couldn't play music you bought from one store on another one. The regulators were looking into Apple because Apple has such a big market share. For some reason, they weren't looking into the other companies that were selling music, but everyone got on the bandwagon and stopped putting DRM on music. You're not going to see the movie studios giving that up very soon, or the TV studios, or the publishers, because most books have DRM as well. So music and podcasts and iTunes U content are the only things you get from the iTunes store that don't have DRM or digital rights management on.
Okay. And one more. When you have an external library, and what I'll do is I'll copy my main library over to another hard drive to use on one of my machines at another location. And every time I do that, it seems like I have to go in and go through some magic. I always have to look it up to where it goes through and adds all the songs and everything back into the library. I don't seem to understand why, when I update that drive, it makes me go through that whole procedure again.
Yeah, your iTunes library isn't just the files. It isn't just your music files. Let's just stick with music. If you look in for music folder, you've got an iTunes folder, and then you've got some files. Your iTunes library is actually this file here, ituneslibrary.itl. This is really the database. This contains all the information about what's in the iTunes library. So what you're doing is you're copying the music to a hard drive, but you're not copying this file to the computer that you're connecting that hard drive to. So if you copy this file, or in fact, if you copy the contents of the entire iTunes folder to the other computer, then when you launch iTunes, everything will be there. That is, not only the music will be found, but any playlists you've made will be there as well.
Is that covered in your book?
Good question. I talk about moving an iTunes library to an external drive, but not moving that drive to another computer, no. Okay. I'll have to add that in the next edition. It's not a question I get often, but it's certainly a valid question. I can understand that, let's say you've got your library at home, you want to take it to work, and the best way is to just carry all the music. Are your music files inside the iTunes folder? So do you have an iTunes media folder?
What I actually do is I actually use Super Duper, and I back up the entire iTunes folder onto an external drive, and then I take that external drive to my other computer at another site, and every time I do that and plug it in, it wants me to go through and, you know, where's the library, and do you want to add stuff to the library, and I don't know, I always end up pulling up some old articles on how to do it, and it's sort of a pain.
So on the other one, you're playing the music from the external drive. You're not copying it onto the computer. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. On the other computer, let's go back. You need to go into the advanced preferences. You see you have iTunes Media Folder Location.
Yeah.
You need to have the iTunes Media folder itself. You click on Change and you select the location. And at the same time, when you've updated it, you need to move the other files here. So iTunes Library ITL, iTunes Library Genius, iTunes Library Extras. You don't have to worry about the iTunes Library XML files. They're not important. iTunes recreates them. But you need to move these 3 files into the iTunes folder on the computer. Otherwise, as I said, it opens iTunes and it's empty, and it doesn't know what's in the library itself. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay, great.
Don.
Okay, you talk about DRM. If they've released us now, why do we still only have a 5 Mac limit to have music?
I wish I knew. You know, I get questions about this a lot. Someone who's got, let's say, 3 kids, and the one of the parents has a couple of Macs, a desktop and a laptop. Another one's got another Mac, and each of the kids has one, and maybe there's one they share, and because they've had Macs for years, so they have old ones that they're still using, and yeah, there's a lot of people who run against this limit. Why is it? You know, this doesn't affect the music. You can put music on any of them. What it does affect, though, are the other types of content like movies and TV shows, but also the ability to share, to load one library. If you look here, sorry, this is my main Mac. It shows up in shared. If I click that, I can load the library, and I can play any of its music on this Mac, which is a laptop. But there's only 5 computers that can be set up to that. So if you've got a household with a lot of computers, you're stuck. There's no way to get around that limit. Why is Apple not going to change it? Who knows?
Question also on album art. Even stuff that I've purchased from Apple, sometimes I don't get the album artwork. Why is that? Even recent.
I've never seen that with purchased music. What you need to do then is, so I'm going to click on an album, and then I'm going to right click, and I'm going to choose Get Album Artwork.
Yeah,
and what that's going to do.
A whole list that is not available.
Sorry?
He gets a list that it's not available.
I'm surprised that's the case for purchased music. So what I do is I just Google the album and look for a file that's of good enough quality. It's not too big, but not too small. I find it pretty easy to find most album artwork on Google.
And you just download the GIF or whatever it is?
Screenshot.
Right, and then what you do.
Oh, a screenshot.
No, you say, well, let's pick one here. Let's go to that album. So, American Beauty, okay? So, American Beauty, right there. And then you click on Images. And if you hover, you can type this. That one's 220, that one's 963, that's a nice one. So you right click and you copy image. Okay. Then you back up iTunes. Select all the tracks, press Command I, click in artwork, paste the image.
Thank you.
Okay. and then click OK.
Okay.
Can I get one more? Why
You
can't
can-
I play an
Sorry?
iTunes, purchased iTunes video? Why can't I get audio through my Airport Express?
A purchased iTunes video, you can't get audio through the iTunes Express?
No,
The Airport
if I'm in the shuffle mode, it turns off the, once it comes to a video, it only...
It stops, yeah, I have no idea, that's new in iTunes 11 too. I have no idea why they do that.
That's always been the case, forever.
I thought it was more recent than that, okay. Because I think, I don't have any music videos on this computer, but I think you can't even make playlists with... There's a thing about making playlists combining songs and music videos that doesn't work very well, but I remember it used to work in the past. I don't buy many music videos, but I remember having them... let me just see on my other computer quickly. Let's see. What have I got? Music. Videos. Let me just drag a video in here. Into this playlist. And let me just drag some songs into this playlist. And put the video here and start. Let's see. Play. And then. No, it's playing fine for me. So I just put in a playlist from music to a music video, and it's playing fine. Is this in a smart playlist or shuffle mode?
Well, yeah, shuffle mode.
Okay.
Don, aren't you using AirPlay also?
Okay. No, let me show you. I think I know what you did here. I'm gonna take a single song here as an example. So on the options tab, there's a thing that says skip when shuffling.
Yeah.
If this is checked in any kind of shuffle mode, iTunes will skip it. Now, the video that I just looked at on my other computer had this set. So maybe music videos get this set by default. Select the videos and uncheck this, and then they should play correctly.
No, it plays, the video plays, but the audio only plays at the Mac. That's okay, thanks. There's other questions.
The audio only plays at the Mac. So you're saying you're doing this through AirPlay?
Well, I'm doing it through Airport Express. No, not AirPlay, just,
You're choosing an Airport Express in the AirPlay menu.
Oh, and that menu, yeah, I didn't know what that's called. Yeah. Correct.
It's very possible that since the Airport Express doesn't support video, that it just gets confused.
Okay, thank you.
My guess is that it's going to play fine through an Apple TV, but the Airport Express is a bit of a hybrid device. You can't connect any video devices. So I'm guessing when it streams a video to an Airport Express, it gets confused and probably wrong. I've never tried that, though, personally. Sorry.
It plays through airfoil, but it's not synced. Thank you.
Jim?
Lately I've been buying music on my iPad. Why doesn't it automatically download to my laptop when I start iTunes on my laptop?
That's a setting. So if you choose iTunes, Preferences, Store, automatic downloads here. So you want to check music, and then click OK, and then any music you buy from this account, from the account that's signed in, will get automatically downloaded to iTunes when you launch iTunes.
Great, thanks.
Okay, you can do this for music or apps. You can do it on, let me just check on my iPhone. I thought you could also do it for, and what I'm thinking is the reason the books doesn't show here anymore is that they now have the iBooks app, so they're not letting you do automatic downloads, and I think they show up automatically in the iBooks app anyway. But yeah, just turn it on here in the preferences, and then you'll get them automatically.
Okay. Marilyn?
How, can you buy gift cards for foreign iTunes stores?
No. I'm gonna tell you a secret. The iTunes store started, you may remember back, originally it was only in the US. I've been using a US account. Originally I was using my mother's credit card. And then she got a little annoyed because it was too confusing, there were too many lines. So what I do is I have friends in the States buy me iTunes gift cards and send me the numbers, and that's how I fill up my account. So if you want to buy an iTunes gift card for someone in another country, you need to find someone in that country to buy the card, and then scratch off the back and give the number to you or to the person you want to give.
Okay.
It's a shame. You know, it has to do with the movie studios and record labels that don't want you to be able to buy content from a different country. On the other hand, I can guarantee you that iTunes and Apple could not care less if you're in a different country and accessing some other country's iTunes store.
Do we have any other questions? Mike?
When you purchase a book under your username, if you wanted to transfer that purchase over to one other member of your family, is it possible to do that, to transfer from one user to another?
It is, but they have to be signed in with exactly the same account. So that's the Apple ID, which is the password, the email address and password. So generally, a husband and wife or whatever, it's pretty simple. You'll probably share an account and it's easy. But for someone else in the family, it might not be so simple. You might not want them to have your Apple ID and password, so you can't do it. Personally, my son uses my iTunes account, and I always trusted him because he's trustworthy. He doesn't go spending money. But if someone is logged in with your account, then they can buy anything from the account as well. So if it's someone you trust, yeah, just log in with the same Apple ID and password, and you can give them the content. If it's someone you can't trust, then I wouldn't recommend it.
Yeah, but my daughter requested, and she was okay until I had too many devices, and now she can't do it.
Well, that's another thing. So you're limited, I think, these days it's 10 iOS devices on an account. So it's 5 computers, but the number of iOS devices is different. And if you're a Mac collector and you've got, 6 different iPods and all that, then you're gonna hit that limit.
Right.
It's the same as the 5 computer limit I talked about earlier. Apple doesn't seem too concerned about that. And frankly, the limit of 5 computers is something you are less likely to hit, but the limit of iPods, iPhones, and iPads in a large family is really easy to hit. But yeah, there's just no way around it. You're stuck.
Do we have any other questions?
Thank you.
Kirk, thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for having me. I hope that, this has made sense and I haven't rambled too much.